What is good, everybody? Hello, 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 hello. I've been doing some scheduling for the week, but it is Momentum Monday, and I was just kind of letting the word percolate for a minute. But I do have a word, and if you're new, hello, nice to virtually meet you. We kind of hang here usually on Mondays and Wednesdays, but sometimes there's pop-up words. So make sure that you subscribe if you haven't, so that you can get alerted when new videos come through. And feel free to ask questions, to leave comments. There's also an opportunity for the Wednesday lives that happen to submit questions that I will sift through and come back and answer. So you might have an opportunity to have a question answered. But for Mondays, what we do is we build momentum, and the momentum that you actually want to carry you through the week. So the topic for this week is permission to prosper. So I often work with folks that are really looking for this, right? Like God came that we might have life and have it more abundant, right? In the full till it overflows, right? So, what does that look like though, to prosper in every area and in all aspects, right? So, one of the things that I thought would be helpful is just to walk you through two different things that you can really be thinking about as you navigate through your week this week. And one of them is about hearing from God, because that is the secret. It's no secret, right? Like seeking the kingdom first and allowing all of those other things to be added to you is how you flip the script, right? A lot of times we run after the things, we run after the pursuits, we run after the connections, we run after the followers, we run after the whatever, right? When really there's one thing. That's the secret. We seek the one thing and we allow that other stuff to come, because really and truly, when you are in a place of peace, when you're in a place of trust, the right things can come to you, right? And from that position, you can also make better decisions than you ever could if you were anxious or worried or freaked out or all the things, right? So just want to start here. I made a list over here, so I'm going to be looking down at it occasionally because I don't want to miss anything. But just a couple of things, and this varies, but if you're anywhere on the journey, if you're new to hearing from God, if you are, on the journey and walking in step with God, if you want to grow deeper in your relationship with God, here are just a couple of, I'll call them like guide rails to help you in your relationship with God, to give you some things to consider or look out for, okay? So here's the thing. God is available to give us guidance literally on every area in our lives, okay? He's given us permission to prosper, but what are we going to do with that? Are we going to seek him? Are we going to go to him for guidance, right? Like we have I like to say, our provider and our source. We have a creative director. We have a master coach. We have a boss, right, that we can consult with every day and many times throughout the day for guidance about anything, whether it's your family, your health, your career, your business, your future, your legacy, whatever it is, okay? So how do you start hearing from God? Here's just a couple of things that you can do. Number one is invite God into whatever area of your life that you really are trying to wrestle in your own understanding, right? You can usually tell when there's anxiety lingering or when you have a lot of restlessness going on in that area. A lot of times when that is happening, we've not invited God into that area of our lives. My second book, God's Vibes Matter, is the main heading. Co-laboring with God is all about how we partner with God. And this particular book breaks down different life areas. And on a scale of 1 to 10, you rate them. 10 being like, God is leading me, God is guiding me. Like, I'm so amped about this area. Like, I just have fully surrendered it to God and it's flowing and we're like really in step and aligned and it's beautiful, right? And 1, like, I haven't even talked to God about it. I haven't even invited God into this area of my life. So you rate these different life areas, whether it's divine connections, divine assignments, whatever it might be, so that you can see and really create a different barometer for success. Your success is, how much am I yielded to the Spirit of God in my life? How much am I being led by God in my life? How much am I getting out of the way and letting God have his way in and through me, right? How much is he able to use me, right? And get glory out of my life. So think about that. So invite him into any part of your life. That may sound super simple, but there's an actual surrender that's happening there. That's a spiritual surrender that's happening. And it's often overlooked. And a lot of times we can just take that simple step for granted. So just begin with an invitation, okay? And you could say something like, Lord, I invite you into my business today. Give me ideas, give me insights and awareness to make the right decisions and to say the right thing in every situation that I face today. Help me to honor you in all I think, say, and do. In Jesus' name, amen. Right? So just that's a true heart surrender, right? It's just turning it over to him and being open and available. It's preparing the way for him to show up in a way that otherwise you wouldn't even be paying attention to, really. So number one, invite him into any part of your life. Number two is converse with God often. Like I like to think about this, like anytime you're going to call a friend, anytime you're going to text somebody or send a message, or anytime you would call somebody just to murmur, to complain, to vent, to freak out about something, converse with God. Run to God, consult with God, right? Like he's the one that you really want to listen to see what he has to say. And you want to make yourself available to wisdom from him. None of your questions are ever too much for God. They might be too much for some people in your life, but they're never too much for God. And when you think about a conversation, it's two ways, right? So it's not just you dumping things, right? But it's you being able to ask a question and then listening for an answer, or being led to a word or a promise, right? So that dialogue is really where our rich and deep faith develops as well. But keep that in mind. A conversation is not a monologue where you're just talking and venting, right? And just asking and begging for things, right? It's a dialogue. It's a two-way street. So that's number two. Converse with God often, right? Throughout the day. Like just stay in contact, in constant conversation with God. Number three is cooperate with God. So when you've invited God into an area of your life, when you're talking to him and you're learning to hear his voice, right? As you start to listen, you start to perceive his voice and what that sounds like to you. Is it the still small voice? Is it confirming a word? Is it, revealing or affirming things through patterns? Maybe you heard a word and then somebody else says that word and then you hear that in a song on the radio. Are there patterns to it? Like you start to see how God is personally relating with you. So as you do that and you become sensitive to him, right? You almost become desensitized to all the distractions and all the noise in the world. And you become more sensitive and aware of him and his presence. Then he's going to give you guidance, okay? And what God says goes, right? So there might be things that pop into your mind, right? But it's really important as you grow with God to start praying for wisdom and praying for discernment, to discern, is this my voice? Is this God's voice? Because sometimes we can get that messed up, right? So keep that in mind, but you really want to cooperate with the voice of God so that you can get more and more familiar with that voice, okay? And so that you can trust it more and more in your life as well. And then number four is implement what God told you to do, right? So if you had a boss and they gave you a directive of some kind, you would say like, yes, okay, and go do the thing. Similar with God, right? So think about that. When God is guiding you to do something, are you putting it off? Are you procrastinating, right? Or are you actually following through? Are you implementing? Are you taking action on the divine ideas, the divine downloads, the revelation, the strategies, the tactics that God is giving you, these ideas that he's putting in your mind, or those impressions that he's putting on your heart, right? Are you ignoring those, or are you implementing those? Because a lot of times we don't have to wait to see how something's going to unfold. If we heard from God, we can trust that we'll move forward. And if we have to pivot or adjust or stop, he'll let us know, right? So we need to be really bold and courageous in taking initiative. And then number five, trust God implicitly. So once we've implemented what he told us to do, we tend to turn our attention away from him and look for results. And usually we try to like throw it into our timeline, which is always so much faster, right, than how God moves a lot of the time. So we think that because we've obeyed God, we now expect like instant success, okay? But there's often a process, and a lot of that is consistent obedience over time. Okay, so keep that in mind. The Apostle Paul actually put it this way. He said, "Therefore we do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day." So something is going on, even if you can't see it. "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but the things that are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." So once you've heard from God and you implement what he's led you to do, don't second guess, okay, your actions, and that, things are probably going to go differently than you hope. Like, stay in faith and stay in expectancy and trust him. So that's just an example of how you can open yourself up to prosper. Like, if you have permission to prosper, like, the way to actually prosper is to keep God front and center in your life and really grow in your intimacy and your connection, your ability to hear and move by his voice and by his spirit. Now, I'm going to take you just through like a couple of steps or just, I guess, like principles to help you live a prosperous life. Okay. So, are you ready? Here are a couple of principles, and then I'll give you homework. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Number one, find your ultimate joy and satisfaction in God. Now, I will admit, I didn't know if this was possible. I didn't know what this would look like. I didn't know. But what I did know was pursuing anything else, right, was a lonely and futile pursuit without God in my life. I did know that. So now, although it was a gamble to put God front and center and learn to find my joy and satisfaction in him, I was willing to do that because of how lonely and unfulfilling other pursuits had been. Even if they were quote unquote successful, right, according to worldly success standards, the internal experience, or what I felt like I was sacrificing or losing, was too much, right? And I just felt like there was so much more. So think about that, right? Luke 12:21 says, "So is the man who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God." So it's talking about being rich towards God in this passage, Luke 12:21. And really what that means is that we find our ultimate joy and our satisfaction in him. Okay. So the best example I have of this is David. Like, David actually learned this principle. If you study David in the word, and he practiced it throughout the Psalms, he refers to God as the portion of his inheritance and his very great reward. So he keeps his focus fixed on God, and he cries out to God. He actually says this: "You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand, there are pleasures forevermore." It's Psalm 16:11. So we can learn, right, how to really be wholehearted, joyful, fulfilled beings as we find our joy and satisfaction in God. When we make our joy and our satisfaction in God our pursuits, we actually become more whole, passionate, joyful humans. Okay. Number two is view whatever your calling is, whether that's your business, whether that's your job, wherever God has you, as a means for glorifying God. Okay. Because when you do that, and when you invite God into any assignment, any place that he has you planted or positioned, when you invite him into that, it's a totally different experience when you make it about glorifying him than about what you think it's supposed to look like or how you think it's supposed to play out. And so that is a really great way to build trust with God also, and start developing the fruit of the Spirit, start getting a lot of feedback from God, right? A lot of character development happens when we make it our intention to glorify God and what he has given us, right? What he's entrusted to us. Number three, serve people as a means for loving them. So a lot of times people, particularly in business, go after people as a number or they go after the dollar, right? But really see serving people as a means for loving them. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. And then lastly, number 4, continually ask God to bless you. I know there's the scripture, you have not because you ask not, James 4:2-3. So a lot of times we don't ask God to bless us. We don't ask God for help. So make sure that you do that as well. Those are a couple ways that you can really learn how to live a prosperous life. So you can keep God first. You can start building connection with him and growing and deepening your connection through learning to hear his voice, being led by his voice, obeying his voice. And then you can really build a foundation for living a prosperous life when you find your ultimate joy and satisfaction in God and you go deeper and deeper in that. When you view whatever he's called you to, wherever he has you positioned, as a means for glorifying him, when you serve others as a demonstration of your love for them, when you actually do it out of a servant heart or servant leadership, and when you continually ask God to bless you, it's literally walking out humility, okay? And knowing that God's on your side and that he's the one that will guide and provide, that he will show up strong in your weakness, that he will guide you and direct your steps, that he will teach you, right, in the ways that you should go. So powerful. So when it comes to actually creating a prosperity plan, I am a big fan of this, right? Like Habakkuk all the way, where you write the vision and you make it plain, because it says that people without vision perish. Okay. So that is no way to live your life, right? Like life is hard enough as it is. And when you don't have a vision, you constantly feel like you're pushing or trying to control things. But a vision is almost like a magnet. It starts pulling you forward and it gives you something to aim for, something to pursue, something to build towards. It helps you to become, like, just even having the vision alone inspires you and motivates you to become the person that can close the gap and that can steward that vision that you see. Okay. So the excitement or the reward is who you become in the process. So how do you create your own prosperity plan here with God? All right. There is a pathway. I'm just going to give you some steps that you can take and that you can be working through this week. Okay. So 1, begin with vision. Okay. Your vision is a clear, concise picture of what your dream, your business, your venture, your project, whatever it is, would look like when it's accomplished at some future date. So this is like the beginning with the end in mind, right? Like you are visioning it as if it's done. And so it is, right? It's inevitable, right? It's a done deal. So you're dreaming about this future fulfillment and this future state, okay? And then in creating that vision, it gives you a vivid picture of what it looks like for you to achieve something that seems impossible, right? And then it could even be something like, what is your picture of legacy? What does that look like? And get clear and specific about that, because that determines how you live your days, right? And it's going to be bigger than you could achieve on your own. That's how God works. So begin with your vision. Next step would be your mission, okay? And your mission is different than the vision, okay? But it's this presence and an action-driven thing, okay? It's what you attend to day in and day out. Like this is your heartbeat, basically. So this is what you do every day, and it supports that picture. Like it's in alignment with that picture, with your vision. Your mission is in alignment with that every day, but it's how you build towards that vision. So for example, I have a foundation. I call it my Daily 5. This is on my website at julianapage.com if you want to get like a quick download of it. But these are the 5 things that I do every day just to maintain like a very healthy state every day. Because if I'm not healthy, if I'm not taking care of just like my basic needs, I can't build. So like these are like bare minimum things that I do every day. It doesn't matter where I am, if I'm traveling, what my work schedule is. Like I knock these 5 things out every day because they help me stay strong as I'm building towards the vision. So part of my mission is taking care of myself. okay? Because I have this vessel, right? Like I'm not my own anymore. So I'm going to take care of myself so I can build and live out the mission and build for the vision, right? The next piece would be your strategic plan, okay? And your strategic plan should really encompass the plans and strategies and systems you put in place in order to fulfill your mission. So just like my daily 5 is part of that, that's part of my plan. There's other pieces that are part of that too. They could be different investments that I have. It could be different platforms and systems that I have in a business. It could be different groups that I run. It could be different engagements that I'm a part of. It could be different partnerships that are in my life. It could be many, many things. But these are all things that you plan in your calendar and that you timeline and that you map out and you start checking off. Okay. Because these are how you start closing the gap. All right. And really everything that we do requires process and systems in order to function well, right? It's just really like habit stacking or having really good life practices is a beautiful example of a place to start with that. And then the next piece here is your goals. Your goals, okay? So when you have your vision, you have your mission, you have your strategies and your systems in place, whatever that looks like for you, you need to set goals to achieve new levels of productivity and prosperity. You've got to have some way of tracking what you're actually doing and if it's going well or not. And if God is still leading, if God is still guiding, right? Or if you've taken the reins and like you're in control now, right? So you can follow SMART goals, but I don't know if that's always how God moves. Like God is a God of order 100%, but I don't know that he always just follows the SMART guide. But the idea with SMART goals is that it's supposed to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. Okay. So they're a good place to start, but you can always take that further as well. Like one of the things that I really like to do, which you can add to this, I call it BAMifying the goals, okay? Like BAM, bam, right? It's like the emerald thing when he's cooking. So you have a baseline goal, you have an amazing goal, and you have a miraculous goal. So I really just believe in stretch goals and making sure that they're part of the vision so that you can see them. It's part of your strategy so that you have something that you're working towards every day and you're motivated by. So for example, if these were like financial goals, maybe you want to make $2,500 a month, and then that's your base. And then it would be amazing if you made $10,000 a month, and even miraculous if you made $25,000 a month, right? Like the miraculous is like only God. The amazing would be like, I could see how that would be possible, but like my faith isn't quite all the way there yet. And baseline is like, this is like the minimum. Like I have to be making that. Okay. So just a little recap there. When you are creating a pathway, a personal pathway to prosperity, this is something that you want to partner with God to do, co-create with God to do. Ask God for your vision. Begin with your vision. Ask him to help you be really clear in your mission so you can show up and live your mission every day, no matter what, right? And then you can have a strategic plan that outlines the different plan, strategy, systems you need to put into place to start closing the gap and building that healthy momentum, and then setting goals within that plan that have things to stretch for to really help motivate you to grow. And then as you start to see how these things evolve and how things start checking off, it is mind-boggling how it happens. And it's actually accelerated growth is what it can really feel like. A visual, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. A visual of it is almost like when you're at the airport and they have those moving escalators, right? So you could be like dragging your bags and like sweating and like walking or even running or walking through the airport, right? But you can get on those escalators and go pretty fast, assuming people aren't just standing on them, right? But that's kind of what it's like. At some point in your life, when you connect with God, he just accelerates you. So I just want to encourage you with that today, that I give you, if you need it, I give you permission to prosper. That is absolutely God's plan for sure. But it is something that requires principles and laws and promises, right? There's things connected to this. It is conditional. Prosperity is, God is almost like an equal opportunity employer in a sense, right? Where we all have equal opportunity to prosper, but will we all work? The harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. Like, will you work? Will you read the word? Will you develop a relationship with God? Will you deepen your intimacy with God? Will you seek the kingdom first? Will you really deepen your knowledge and wisdom and understanding of the kingdom? Will you grow in revelation and wisdom, right? Will you develop the fruit of the Spirit? Will you be willing to endure some hard things and learn the lessons from the different tests that God takes you through, right? As He's teaching you how to prosper, right? God is the one that teaches us to prosper, right? And He adds no sorrow with it. And that's the kind of prosperity you want. But there are steps. God is the God of order. So there are different things to do. So what we covered today was how you can seek God and really start embracing a relationship with God, a constant conversation with God that is a dialogue where you can be connected every day. You can choose to live aligned every day. And then you can also really lock in some keys to prosper and think through some ways that, are you doing this? Just do a self-check with those 4 things that we walk through. And then lastly, you can actually come up with a plan and just get clear. A lot of times when we feel stuck, a lot of times when we feel frustrated, it's just because we don't have that clarity. And clarity is what makes us feel confident. When we can see something, we start being more motivated or inspired or hopeful, right? That we can move towards that or that it's possible. So that's my encouragement to you today. I hope this message blessed you. Let me know in the comments if any of this struck you or resonated with you, or if you're going to implement anything here. If you do want to connect, you can connect with me over at julianapage.com. And then all of my social medias and all the things are over there as well. I did just release 2 books. So they were live last week, which is hilarious because I actually didn't know. I decided to look today and they're live. So one of them is called Stepping into Royalty. The other one is called Rule and Reign, the Faith Walker Manual. So you can get them both on Amazon. I will have a lot more detail on my website as well. But if you wanted to get those, oh my goodness, they are life-changing. I wish I had those in my hands at an earlier age for sure. But I'm so excited to share those with you. So make sure that you go and check those out or even gift it to a friend. All right, guys, until next time, stay blessed.